Hello everyone, how you doing? Great to see you again. Welcome back to Tapping Off Farm with James and Rosa. So we've had quite a break from making our farm vlogs, taken the last few months away from making content for YouTube and for Patreon. Thank you so much to everyone who has been sending messages over these last few months asking when we're going to be back and making more videos. So here we are. We just needed a break. It was just nice to focus on the year ahead. For me to try farming with both hands instead of just one. It's been a difficult year, one of our hardest growing years yet. So that was another reason we just needed to take some time off to put the energy into the hands-on job. And of course we've been working away in the background and that means we've got a lot to show you. So there's a lot to catch up on. I'm not going to be able to catch you up on it all in this vlog, but for starters we have this. A lot of you who follow us at our other social media sites like Instagram and Facebook will have seen all the goings on to do with this beautiful hut. Over the years we've had a lot of people inquiring whether they can come and stay here at Tapping Off Farm, and now you can. It's got its own garden, it's got its own outdoor oven and pizza oven, there's a wood-fired hot tub. It's really lovely, it's beautiful. We've been staying there a lot ourselves over the last couple of months, testing it out so that when you guys come and stay, it's going to be perfect for you. But we'll do a vlog about that another time. But that's certainly one of our big pieces of news that's changed quite a bit since we last spoke to you all. This is Oren, our collie. Now he's been growing away in the background since we were last on YouTube. Off he goes, busy guy. But he's doing really well. He's almost a year old now. And as you see, I'm milking the goats now in the morning with Rosa. So this started about maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Can't quite remember how I got roped into milking them. But anyway, I am, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lovely thing to do, great way to start the day. Of course, another big new project that we've been working on over the last few months is the establishment of our new forest garden. So this area of forest garden, we've planted around 25 to 30 canopy species fruit trees. We've been putting in a fruiting shrub layer, all planted on either side of these long ponds. It's still a work in progress. We've got trees to mulch, we've still got quite a bit of tidying up to do, we've got a few more trees to plant. We've got to come in here and cut back a lot of the raspberry. So we've got our shepherd's hut that'll be ready for taking bookings very soon. We've designed and built a new area of forest garden. We've made 3 new ponds and we've started turning over our market garden to a no-dig approach. It's been a busy year, it's been a really busy season, it's been a very difficult season. This has been our most challenging veg growing season to date. Out of the 6 years that we've been growing small scale commercial vegetables, this has been the most troublesome, the most testing. This is absolutely bloody ridiculous. Look at this rain. This is what we've had for weeks now. Low temperatures and rain and rain and rain and rain. Everything is washed out. Polytunnel keeps on getting flooded. The chickens are hating it because it's a mud bath. Everything is taking ages to grow. Crops that we've set out in the garden weeks ago have just stayed at the same height. Yeah, this is not fun, folks. You don't often see us moaning or complaining, but we are now. because this is not great. The only place that we've got some respite is here in the polytunnel, but the water's coming into the polytunnel as well. Yeah.
But I am picking peas.
You're picking peas?
Yeah.
There was a silver lining and it's pea-shaped.
It's a tiny little munch.
Oh, that's nice.
You want to eat it?
Forget everything I said, folks. We're all good. See you later. While this is August, the garden is just not producing as much as it has done in previous years. The lucky thing is that we actually downsized our CSA membership this year so that we would have more time to focus on other enterprises that we're setting up. So this year we've actually got a much smaller membership, which has helped with the impact of all the problems that this garden has suffered from. One of the big changes that we made to the market garden this year was starting to adopt a no-dig approach to our cultivation. It was always minimum tillage, and we really tried our best to avoid it, but in the back of our minds we always wanted to experiment with the Charles Dowding style no-dig of applying a good 10 centimeters or so of a compost on top of the beds as a growing medium, as a weed suppressant. It was always incredibly difficult for us to find that compost. It was often estimated that we needed between 20 and 60 tons depending on how many beds of our market garden that we wanted to try this approach with. And this year we finally managed to track down a source of compost and we got about 20 tons. It's compost that's been made from primarily wood chip from a sawmill. So we've managed to apply that. So we've been busy. These beds behind me here are definitely some of the plot that we've been applying around 10 to 15 centimeters of compost per bed. So there was a lot of back-breaking wheelbarrowing going on in early spring. So of course we had that as a challenge, just learning the technique for making some of these beds. But that wasn't really one of the main problems that has caused this year to be a hard one. One problem that we've had to deal with as a result of changing to a no-dig system was, unfortunately, we've managed to bring in quite an invasive weed into our garden from that compost. Unbeknownst to us, the compost had some bindweed in it, which we are now finding in quite a few of our beds. And this is quite heartbreaking, considering we've done a no-dig approach to really stop having weeds in the garden. Obviously, when you stop digging and turning the soil, you stop bringing up dormant weed seeds. So the big concept, one of the big concepts apart from its environmental benefits, is obviously to reduce our weeding. And then here we go, importing quite a tenacious weed into the garden. And now what we're doing is just having to pick out all the little bindweed rhizomes and try our best to dispose of them so that it doesn't spread throughout the garden.
When we first got the compost, we noticed some white roots throughout the compost. They looked a bit like this, and we thought they were from potato tubers and things. But it turned out that it was bindweed, and still there's some growing up in our beds, especially these ones that we've had covered over, so we haven't been pulling it out on a regular basis. So it's got a bit big here. One of the things about bindweed is it binds around other plants, and eventually it can completely strangle them. But yeah, we're not going to let it get that big. But the main concern that we have is getting out all of the plant material. The best thing to do is to try without disturbing it too much. Yeah, I can kind of see that there. So, you know, without pulling this, because it will come off, just trying to get that white root. This is quite a big one actually. So I'm following it with my hand and then easing it out. Even just leaving a tiny little bit, you know, it can regenerate from that. If we're going to keep looking at the silver linings here, we're lucky that, you know, we didn't go and spread this anywhere where we weren't able to actually go through like this and pick them out, because if we'd have gone and thrown this in a forest garden tree row or something like that, we would have, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't have had a chance. We would have just had to try and fight it back every now and then, whereas here we actually do have a chance of hopefully eradicating it by doing this, by pulling these out, and then the next stage is drowning it. because you don't want to chuck this in your compost. So we're going to be taking these down to our
Give me
bindweed grave.
Give me it.
There we go.
So yeah, that's not great. The other thing is the quality of the compost hasn't been that great either. Things just don't seem to be growing too well in the wood chip compost that we've bought in, compared to some beds that we've got in other plots where we're still growing in the native soils. Yeah, okay, I'm complaining. Is that what you're saying? It's the nature of the job. We know that, you know, this is what seasonal farming is all about. And we're very lucky that we've got an understanding group of CSA members who are happy to support us through the ups and downs of farming to produce vegetables for them.
We're just starting picking for the box tomorrow. That's the first pouch of beans. There's quite a lot more to come. It's going to be a very beany box. We've got broad beans and climbing beans and dwarf beans. We're going to be picking some beetroot, a bit of mustard greens. Got Shirley picking some black currants outside. I've actually never seen so many beans on a climbing bean plant before, but then we've never grown them in a polytunnel before. They've definitely really enjoyed being in here. Hello. The crops in this polytunnel have kind of saved our skin a bit this season because of our smaller CSA size. The number of members we've got is smaller, so the crops that we can get from here, we've actually been able to fill lots of boxes almost solely from the polytunnel crops. We've grown a huge diversity of things in here this year. And just we wouldn't have been able to do any boxes so far without the polytunnel. That's been down to a number of reasons. It's been a tough year. The climate's been pretty difficult. We pretty much didn't have a spring. It felt like winter just carried on through the spring months. And obviously that's going to have a big impact on any business that's reliant on the climate. So for us, it just meant that things didn't get that start that they require, that growth spurt that's required to get them to where they need to be for the start of our season. That's why the polytunnel was so useful, obviously, because of the difficult weather conditions. This was really, a kind of a safe place for the plants where they could actually grow close to normally. And so that really did set us back. The amount of rain and therefore slugs and all these things that just combined to make the rest of the garden definitely at least a month behind what we were used to. What we had after that was a kind of about a month-long drought, and that really then was another extreme condition to force upon these already quite stunted plants that we had outdoors in the garden. However, even with all of the pluses of the conditions of the polytunnel, we are still totally lacking in some of our staples that we're used to for really filling our boxes at this time of year. For example, courgettes. Not many people have difficulty growing courgettes, and neither do we. And unfortunately, we had an issue right at the start of the season. Our potting compost, not that we knew this at the time and thought that it was mainly to do with the weather, because there was very little sun or warmth in spring when we were sowing the seeds, but many seeds didn't germinate. And after speaking with some other market gardeners and slowly putting things together, we realised that unfortunately the potting compost that we've always used and always had really good results with, to be fair, this year's batch seemingly has had some issues because a lot of other market gardeners have been pretty floored by the effects of the fact that this potting compost seems to have impacted germination rates so heavily, negatively. I think this has been something to do with the drainage on this potting compost not being quite right, but we really did notice water from when we were watering in the polytunnel really sitting on the surface of the seed trays more than usual. Again, we put this down to just the cooler temperatures and things, but long story short, it resulted in poor to no germination of some of our crops. I kept sowing and re-sowing, having to buy more seed, as some of you may have noticed in the recent years since COVID. Seed is also selling out, difficult to get hold of, so then that became the problem because we'd run out of seed, they weren't germinating. We did end up ordering plants because we ran out of the seed. We couldn't get more in time and we thought that would be quicker, but that actually unfortunately took a few months instead of a few days like we thought it was going to take. So we ended up basically without courgettes or even cucumbers, things that we knew were going to do well, and frustratingly just didn't have the opportunity to do well because we didn't get them to germinate. So we have, I think, 3 courgette plants that managed to germinate out of me sowing hundreds, and I think 3 cucumber plants. We do have the ones that finally arrived from the nursery, but months after we would normally plant them. So we don't know if they're gonna grow in time, unfortunately. So those things that we know we would be putting in the box and padding it out with, mix that with the fact that unfortunately the main market garden was behind because of the climate and the impact of the no-dig compost being just not the best growing medium for kind of the amount of low nutrients, and also just not having the best soil structure. So it's been a bit of, I keep saying this, but a bit of a perfect storm of things going a bit wrong, unfortunately. We're trying to stay a bit positive, but it really has been the first year where we honestly have had difficulty filling our veg boxes. Often we worry about it and we might complain, but we always manage to fill them. But this year, not having those kind of staple crops, our brassicas, you know, lovely big cabbages and broccoli and courgette and the cucumbers that did so well last year. Yeah, those things, not having them has really, really impacted everything. So yay, we're very happy for these guys. The beans, the things that have done well, the things that we've ended up just putting in the polytunnel to try and get things to work. So we are finding ways to make it work. But yeah, we've had as James said, a pretty testing season. Getting the bindweed out of the beds is, yeah, one of the last things we discovered and just felt like it's all a bit comical almost.
Alright, we're going to say goodbye guys as we finish picking these beans for tomorrow's veg box. I better help Rosa reach the ones at the top. So I hope you're all well out there. Thank you so much for watching today. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, give the video a like, check out our Patreon, and until next time, we'll see you soon. See ya.